Greetings, Rahubat. I hope all are well. I hope I can be heard. As usual, we are back, the Actual Facts Podcast. We want to thank you all for tuning in, as usual, to all my regular listeners and subscribers. I appreciate all of the support. To everyone that is new, I am Dr. Duswa York. I am the host of the Actual Facts Podcast. And today you are in for a special treat as we continue to uncover the actual facts of the various subjects that are presented to us for questioning and inquiries as it relates to our spiritual science of Wu Sabat, introduced to us by, given to us by our ancestors, a long lost science, spiritual science that has been uh, embedded in the genes of the Africans, blacks globally, the sleeping deities that we are, our Heavenly Father and Master Teacher, His Excellency, Dr. Malachi Z. York, the one and only, has blessed us with his incarnation and has given us the opportunity to learn as much as we can from these actual facts in the various publications that he has written globally and has distributed throughout the world. Over 1,500 books. And one of the main topics that these books cover, which of course is Christianity and Christ, right? One of the, if not the most prominent icon of the religious world, even in his mystery of us, most people, the religious world, not really knowing who this being is, not really understanding his life, not understanding the records or the books that surrounds the events of his life and the recordings of his sayings, the books, so-called holy books that are attributed to him and those that are attributed to his disciples, right? We still have inquiries, and because of the spell that has been placed upon blacks, Africans, and human beings just in general around the world, typically um, we have lost the connection that we had to these deities. And Yahshua, Isa, or Jesus of 2,000 years ago would be one of those deities if we understood exactly who he was, where he was taught, what doctrine he learned, and why is he so significant to us in this day and time. The master teacher, His Excellency Dr. Malachi York, free the father, of course, coming home real soon, the one that you see here, and a lot of the books that you see. I'll introduce the publications to you. There's a long list of publications that he's written in reference to. They're called the Christ series, and he's explained this being in hundreds of books, many different titles. For those that are not unaware, there's books titled "Is Who is Jesus' Father? Who Rolled the Stone?" Books such as St. Paul, Disciple or Deceiver, that goes into his life. You have books called The Glory of Jesus, the Messiah, Black Man's Christianity versus White Man's Christianity. You have the Day of Pentecost and the Degree of Christism, which is one that is very valuable. It's over 1,000 pages that Dr. Malachi Z.K. York has written that covers the entire life of this being, the lies that have been told about him, the stories that have been attributed to him that people cannot authenticate, the lost books that have been written about this individual and that have not been placed in the Bible, that is one of the most popular books that the religious world reads, along with their Quran. Jesus as Tammuz and Horus in History is also a publication. What Race Was Jesus is a publication that Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, Panabab Yanun, has written. The Holy Shroud, Fact or Fiction. Is Jesus the God of the Quran? The fallacy of Easter, and the list goes on and on. So what we're going to do in this episode is cover as much as we can in the amount of time that is pretty much reasonable, because we literally, compared to the publications that the father has written, we can talk about, based on the series, for days, right? And we have this the platform to do it, but we're going to take about 2 or 3 hours. Hopefully it's interesting enough for you to all stay tuned, and I applaud you all that have been staying tuned, because you show that we have a lot of value and the facts are definitely hitting home for our people. Now, and thank you for all tuning in. We have a few announcements to make as we move forward. That the actual facts. This is the podcast, but we also, and on our channel, we're going to do some great things on the continent of Africa. Right? We're going to we have a documentary that will be released called "From Takoradi to Boston: The True Story of Dr. Malachi Z. York, His Life, His Birth, Where He Was Born." We're going to talk to the York Association in Ghana, our family York clan in Ghana. We're going to go to Takoradi. You're going to see the content, the hospital he was born in. You're going to meet and see some of the family. We're going to interview the prominent leaders in Takoradi that are aware and know Dr. Malachi Z.K. York. We're going to speak to some key figures within government. And we're also going to see just the land. We're going to see the environment. We're going to see most people that have never been to Ghana. Obviously, Africa is rising. You see it all in the news, the great things, the cultural events, the activities, the growth, the development that is taking place on the continent. So we're going to release that as for all those Sabaeans and supporters of the Father. Thank you, Born King. I appreciate you, brother. We're going to show just what Africa has to offer. And it's just a beautiful thing that we can do this. And actual facts will be taking on the continent, will be taking on Africa. And we're going to travel to various countries. We're going to go to Botswana, to the Sands people, to see the first seeding of the African seed on the planet. We're going to travel to Mali. We're going to cover the Dogon and all the historical places there, the tourist attractions. We're going to speak to a few of the tribes and the leaders of Mali, and just Sudan as well. We're going to go to Khartoum, going to Al Mahdi's, our bloodline, our families, patriarch of the patriarch side of Saeed Al Imam Isa Al Hadi Al Mahdi, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York's bloodline from Sudan. You're just going to do a lot of great things on the continent. So I just applaud you all. To, make sure you all tune in and stay sub. Make sure you like and you share, and just share this with the rest of the family, rest of the world, because we're going to bring a lot of phenomenal content to the world, for the world to see exactly how the actual facts is affecting Nubians, Nuwaupians, all across the globe, especially on the continent. The continent is growing mentally, right? And in such a way that people are waking up to the spell and they're enjoying these actual facts that His Excellency has given us. And it's only right that we continue to do our job here. And so we appreciate the support. Now, let's get into this. The crucifixion of Christianity. Now, the title is based on the we want to eliminate, our job, of course, and the actual facts is to eliminate the lies that have been plaguing our people, to remove falsehood, to renew this information that has been given to us from other races and other people, other foreigners, to control the Africans of the diaspora, the Africans on the continent, to control the minds and souls of our people. Our job is to remove the veil and eliminate the misinformation and introduce outformation to you all. And so we're doing our best. We will do our best to do this. This is the third part of the destruction of the religious doctrine. We covered I hope you all enjoyed. If you haven't, check out the bloodthirsty Yahweh of the Hebrews and the Jews, and also the ugly face of Islam in episodes 12 and 11 that we covered in the previous weeks. We do our episodes on the 9th, the 19th, and the 27th. So it's just been a pleasure, and we're going to keep this going. So this is the crucifixion of Christianity. Now, what do we mean by Christianity? Well, a lot of us are not aware that there's so many different in this research, right, that we've done. Rahubat, everyone, and please share so people can tune in and catch us live. Some people miss the notifications, or they may not be aware that we're on. So please do your due diligence. It's highly appreciated if you can. Now, a lot of us are not aware of the many sects of Christianity. When you hear Christianity, you may just be familiar with the basic three: Pentecostal, Baptist, Roman Catholic, right? But there's literally hundreds of types of Christians, different denominations based on different influences from different Europeans mostly, and also just the titles alone, different areas or time frames will refer. Let's say restorations or reformations were happening amongst the people who were rebelling against certain systems that were in place. A lot of those political systems were based on Christianity, and people were rebelling against the establishment. And in that, in the rebelling of the establishment, a lot of sects were born out of just the rebellion alone. And so we're going to go through a list of the types of Christians that we're going to cover, the types of Christianity or Christian sects we're going to cover. This is not an attack on people. I don't want the religious world to think that we're attacking the person. We're not attacking individuals. I don't know many Christians. I don't know many Muslims, though we studied the doctrine. I don't know a lot of Hebrews. I'm familiar with their doctrine, and those that convert, our job is to say, okay, let's put the personal thing aside and let's deal with the facts so we can heal our souls, because everyone seems to be confused in these days and times. And so we're just blessed to have the Father amongst us to eliminate the confusion, and our job is to pass on these facts. So let's address the different sects of Christianity. Now, there's over 2 billion Christians, 2 billion, actually close to 3. But the majority of the Christian sect population is Catholicism, right? So according to the estimates, they have this stat where they keep account of the converts of Christianity and the individuals who convert to different particular doctrines. And they have this huge database. And based on this database, Catholicism is 1.2 billion to 1.4 billion types of Catholics. Obviously, the Roman Catholic Empire established or adopted the Christian doctrine from Paul, right? And as they were persecuting a group of Christians who were so-called called Christians in Antioch, which we'll get into in the book of Acts. And this Paul character, which we'll get into. But obviously, the Roman Catholic Church and the Catholicism has dominated Christianity as a whole. So you have 50% of all Christians are Catholics. Eastern Catholic Church, you have the Eastern Catholic, which is 18 million. Then you go into other sects of Catholicism. So we just covered them. 50% of all Christians, 1.4 billion, which is a large number of almost, I think, let's say an eighth of the world, maybe a little more than the world. I think it's 8 billion people. So if you have 10 billion, say a billion Christians, then that's a tenth of the entire world, which is a lot. That's just half of the Christian world. So you have Protestants. Protestants make up 1.2 billion, and the Protestant church was introduced or created by Martin Luther in 1517. Right, the Anglican Church, the Church of England, 85 million to 110 million by King Henry VIII. You can look that up. Baptists are 51 to 110 million. And this took place, the introduction of the Baptist Church came 75 years after the Church of England, right, which was King Henry VIII. And that was introduced by Thomas Helios, and John Martin, right? These were English dissenters, right? Then you have Lutherans who are 70 to 90 million. Calvinism, Reformed churches, 85 to 100 million, introduced by John Calvin, 1509 to 1564. Methodists, 46 to 60 million, introduced by John Wesley, a sect introduced by John Wesley in 1703 to 1791 with his son, Charles Wesley, right? And John Calvin in 1509 and 1564. And he was a French theologian. You have the Adventism or Adventism, Seventh Day Adventist, Elaine White and her husband John White. Joseph Bates introduced this in 1863. These are all the different types of Christian sects. Restoration movement was 4 million, started the Restoration movement in early 19th century by Barton W. Stone and Thomas Campbell and his son Alexander Campbell. Anabaptism. I don't know if you heard of them. You may have. I haven't. Anabaptism, 4 million. It's incredible. What is an Anabaptism? I don't know. But it was started by Ulrich Zwingli, a Swiss theologian. Then you have Plymouth Brethren, or the Plymouth Brethren, or 3.4 million by John Nelson Darby, 1820, began in Dublin, Ireland. 3.4 million Plymouth Brethren, right? Then you have the Hussites, which is 1.2 million, a Christian movement influenced by both the Byzantine Rite and John Wycliffe, following the teachings of the reformer John Hussey, right? This was in 1401, 1445. You also have the Quakers, 0.4 million, right? 400,000 approximately. George Fox founded the Quaker movement. Then you have the Pentecostals. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just giving you the idea that this is what we're up against when we address this Catholicism. You have New Apostolic Church, 10 million, John Bate Cordell in 1832 in England, and Messianic Judaism, 3 million, Joseph Rabinowitz, which is in the 19th century. Now, what am I saying with this? I'm saying that there's literally hundreds of different types of Christians, and sad to say, our people are caught up in one of the other. And it's a I could say, $1 trillion industry. Over the last 2,000 years, they've milked the world and milked innocent souls out of trillions of dollars, right? And built hundreds or thousands of cathedrals, took billions of dollars in tithes and offerings, and baptized thousands, millions of people, taken communion. Millions of people have taken communion, eaten fake bodies, let's say, calling it bread, fake flesh, which is cannibalism, drinking fake wine, which is so-called blood, all based on what? These books that they claim are authentic. Now, based on this biblical text that we're going to address, let's address this biblical text. Now, you have, for the most part, the New Testament, which we're going to stay in. We address the Old Testament. We're going to address this New Testament doctrine. And the New Testament, you have these particular books. You have about, let's say, 27 books, 27 books out of the New Testament. 27 of these books, out of 27, none of them are the original. They have no original books at all. There's not one original handwritten text from any of the authors. That's fact one. We want to establish that first and foremost. This is very important. Why? Because if you're going to live your heart, mind, and soul in this Christian doctrine, and you want to say that, it is by this being Christ, this Yahshua who you worship, no one knows what he looks like. There's literally thousands of pictures of him in different races. They have Chinese. You go to China, they have a Chinese Jesus. You go to Korea, they have a Korean Christ. You go to a Korean church, you see him on a cross. He just looks Korean. You go to Rome, they have a Roman Yahshua Jesus who obviously looks Caucasoid. You go to Russia, obviously their ethnicity is a Russian. You go to Hindu or India, the Hindu religion, they have their Sri Krishna, or who they claim is their Christ as well. So all of these Christs are different, and all of them have their own ethnicity based on the race by which they claim he came to. So they paint him to look like them, obviously, for superiority purposes, and to have the feeling that God is their father and their son looks like them, so they're one family and they're the chosen. This is all hypocrisy. This is all lies. And this is all a doctrine that has to be eliminated because it has caused much confusion and chaos on the planet. And simply because they're void of any facts. Now, when we say the facts of the books, let's get into these books and when they were so called revealed. You had the book of Matthew, St. Matthew in 41. You have Mark, 65 AD. You have Luke, which is 58 AD. St. John, 98 AD, right? Fifth, the book of Acts, 61. The epistles to Rome, 56 AD. First and Second Corinthians, 55 AD. The ninth book out of the New Testament is Galatians, 52 AD. Right, 10 Ephesians, 61 AD. Philippians, 61 AD. Colossians, 61. First and Second Thessalonians, 51. First and Second Timothy, 64 and 65. Right, the Hebrews of 61, James 62, First Peter 64, Second Peter 64, First John 98, Second John 98, Third John 98, Third Jude, right? The book of Jude 65, and the book of Revelations, which was in 96 in the Isles of Patmos. Now, what happens is this: because none of these books, they have none of the original books, it's very difficult to authenticate any of the stories. Why? Because when you look at the books and you address in the philology of the doctrine, or let's say when you look at the textual criticism of it, they will look at let's say there's several research publications or resources or sources that you can look into and find that will address when the oldest of these books, what they were written on, where they are, and why they don't have the original, and why can't they claim or authenticate the author. That's very important. And I'm not talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm not talking about the Septuagint. I'm not talking about the Masoretic text. Those are Old Testament texts. I'm talking about the Codex Sinaiticus. We're talking about not the Codex Sinaiticus, which is one. Right. The reason why the Codex Sinaiticus is mentioned is because of the Codex Recepticus is there. Right. You also have the Codex of the Codex Sinaiticus, Codex Recepticus, and there's another one, Codex Leningrad. Right. Now, so let's address this codex. Now, the Codex number 5, which is, we're not going to get into the Old Testament. We're going to go to this Codex Sinaiticus. It's called the Sinai Bible, right? It's a 4th century Christian manuscript of the Greek Bible containing the Greek Old Testament, including the Deuteronomy, Deuteronomical. They made it difficult. Deuteronomy, the book of Deuteronomy, right? And the Greek New Testament. Now, this Greek New Testament is, they say, is one of the oldest. It has the Epistle of Barnabas actually in it, and the Epistle of Hermes, right? Which is written in the Unical letters, which is one of the 4 great Unical codexes. These Unical codexes are, there's 4. The great Unical codex manuscripts, which originally contained the whole, both New and Old Testament. Now, what it means by that is they say these conicals are books that contain both, but they're not original. Now, we're focusing on the original because the original is where we get the confirmation if what we have today in this New Testament is authentic. And none of these books can be confirmed. And we're going to go through some of the sources so you can see, wow, how many mistakes were in these books. Literally thousands of mistakes were found in the text itself, the New Testament. They had to have scribes who would write or rewrite the New Testament, and then have correctors of the writers of the scribes, and then correctors of the correctors, right? Which is unbelievable when you look at how the text had metamorphosized from the oldest to what you have now. So along with the conicals, right, we have, they call them codices or conicals. Whatever word you choose, you can use the one that you decide. Now, You have, oh, yes, this is the other one, Codex Alexandrinus and Codex Vaticanus. The Codex contains the oldest copies of the New Testament, and you can find this in the manuscripts of the Greek Bible, an introduction to the Greek paleography by Bruce Manning. Now, after we address these lies, we're going to get into the facts as taught to us by the Father of who this being really is. But just for your sources, let's continue. The Codex Sinaiticus is dated to the mid fourth century and is classified as an historical treasure. Right? It was discovered in Sinai in 1844, written on vellum skin, which is a skin of an animal, right? Calf sheep specifically, in 4 million unical letters. There are missing books in there, the books of Tabut, 3rd and 2nd century BCE. Then the wisdom of Sirach is missing, which was in the Old Testament, and the 4 Maccabees are missing. And the epistles of the Barnabas is missing, and the shepherd of Hermes is missing. The Codex Sinaiticus is in general agreement with the Codex Vaticanus. The Codex Ephraemi Reciprocus, right, has 14,800 corrections. Now, I've mentioned the 4 main conicals, right, or codex that the entire biblical world use as the oldest text, as a source reference for the biblical text. But because they have no original, there's no person on the planet that can show that this Bible that you use today is authentic enough, because you have an original to compare it to. So it doesn't matter what argument you pivot on. If you don't show an original text written by Matthew, written by John, written by Luke, written by Paul, written by whoever of the Jude, whatever book or author you claim is attributed to this particular New Testament text, there's no original. So there are no signatures of these individuals to say, yes, I'm the writer of the book of Mark. In fact, in the book of Matthew is a total discrepancy, because if you look at Matthew 9:9, in the book of Matthew is someone is speaking about Matthew. So that eliminates Matthew, because the discrepancy is this. Let's read it. When you look at Matthew, right? Matthew 9:9. Let's go there. When you read it, you'll see something totally different from what they've been telling you, that this is authentic, this is a holy book. It can't be holy if Matthew didn't write the book of Matthew. And as Jesus passed forth from thence, right, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the receipt of customs, and said unto him, follow me. And he rose and followed him. This is so-called in the book of Matthew. So we know if Matthew is not writing, Matthew is speaking about himself, how could Matthew 9:9 be speaking about a man named Matthew if the book of Matthew was written by Matthew himself? It wouldn't say, and he saw a man named Matthew. It would say, and he saw me, or he saw myself, and I rose and followed him. So you don't see that there's a discrepancy there, only because we know that the book of Matthew, there is no original. So therefore, anyone could have written the book of Matthew and put the name, the book of Matthew, on there. Now, this is a part of the problem in the Codex Sinaiticus, because the codex can be dated with a reasonable degree of confidence, came between the early 4th century and 5th century. It could have not have been written before 325, because they have this Eusebian canons inside of it to show that it was speaking about a particular text that came after 325. So all of the codex, none of these are original. The Roman Emperor Constantine commissioned for Eusebius, right? At the time, this is how you know that this canonical of the codex of which we call Sinaiticus was not by the particular authors or so-called authors, because of the time frame and the reference and the source of the Roman Empire, Constantine, inside of this particular book, inside of the codex. So if he was inside of the codex, written in there as a reference, then it could not have been written in the time of this book of Matthew. After Constantine converting to Christianity, he commissioned 50 copies of the Bible in 331 for the use of Bishop of Constantinople. This you will find in the book of called the Ancestry of Our English Bible, an account of manuscripts, texts, and versions of the Bible. You had 3 scribes and 7 correctors of the book of Sinaiticus, the Codex of Sinaiticus. Now, let's go into some of these scribes. Now, in the Sinaiticus, these scribes, one scribe A wrote most of the historical and poetical books of the Old Testament and almost whole New Testament and the epistles of Barnabas. This is the oldest now. So they're letting you know that scribes wrote this New Testament. So all the Christian readers who are taking this book and say, well, this is the Holy Bible, you're not understanding that the book itself, the oldest text that you can find, if you do a small little research, you'll see that there were scribes that wrote this New Testament, the Codex Sinaiticus, and you had scribe A, who was responsible for the epistles of Barnabas, even, which was left out. He wrote the entire New Testament. Then you had scribe B, was responsible for the prophets and the prophesies of Hermes, which was left out. One of the books of Hermes, Herems. You can look that up. Scribe D wrote the whole of Tabit and Judith, the first half of Maccabees, and the first 2/3 of the book of Psalms. This is in the oldest codex. No originals. Now, the scribes, right? The scribe that was responsible for scribe A, let's go to scribe A because we're going in this. Each codex has a certain amount of scribes that was responsible for a particular part of the New Testament. Scribe A, right, which he was a poor speller. This is in their sources. He was a poor speller, making some unusual, serious mistakes. This is in manuscripts of the Greek Bible. You'll find that an introduction to the Greek paleography, Oxford University Press, page 77. They said this scribe, he made some unusual mistakes. He was a poor speller. This is where they get the New Testament from. Scribe B was also a poor speller who used nomina sicara, which is abbreviating divine names. This source you'll find in Jenkins Dirk, right? Scribal Habits of Codex Sinaiticus. Now, guess what? Let's move forward to, right? Move forward to Codex. Let's move to this Codex here. Oh, that's the biblical text, the Quranic text. Also, let's go back, right? Because we still have to cover the so you have that the Codex Sinaiticus. Let's get into the Masoretic text. No, that's the Old Testament. Okay. Yeah, Codex Sinaiticus. Let's finish with that. So now in these Codex Sinaiticus, you'll find the bad spellers, 4,000 translators who made mistakes, 4,000 errors you'll find in there. You'll also find the scribes who had to rescribe or recorrect these texts in such a way that the ink on the, which we'll call the vellum, they had to rewrite it because it had, what you call washed away over a period of time, hundreds of years. Because it had washed away, the scribe had to come back, rewrite it, and then redo what they thought was there. This is all in their New Testament. Now, when you talk about the book of John and the book of Matthew, right, the Father speaks about this Christ figure or this Christ being as a person who studied and was taught in Egypt. First of all, they talk about the wise men coming to this Christ character in the book of Matthew. And in the book of Matthew, he says that Matthew, of course, according to the story, says Herod had sent, right, men to look for this newborn Christ, this newborn creature, this newborn being who was a threat to the establishment. And it was a sign from the stars that they seen a specific alignment that the wise men saw, what they followed the star, as well as the alignment of Venus, which was spoken of in the lost book of the lost records of time that the master teacher, Dr. Malachi Z York, had wrote about. Now, what Herod does is in the book of Matthew, it says that he set out to kill all of the children, boys at 2 and under. So Joseph and Mary was told to take this child and go into, right, go into Egypt, Rahobat, everyone, to go into Egypt to hide, right? But what they don't tell you is that the missing time where he was wax wise with wisdom in Egypt, he was there in Egypt and learned a specific doctrine. If this character is true in the biblical text, we know based on in our doctrine that Yahshua or Jesus of 2,000 years ago, the character that we know was an Egyptian character or an Egyptian being who had an Egyptian name by the name of Horus or Harar, who was taught an Egyptian doctrine, not a Christian doctrine. He was taught the ancient mysteries of ancient Mekmet, and in ancient Egypt, you have to, in order to know what he learned and understand what he taught, you would have to learn ancient Egyptian doctrine. Obviously, that's important because in order to say I'm a Christian or I am Christ-like, Christ-like means to be like Christ, even though he wasn't called Christ. Like most of the Christian world claims that, okay, we're Christian because we're Christ-like or we want to be like Christ. Well, the name itself is wrong. Because according to Christianity, he was a Jew. And if you are a Christian and you wanted to be Christ-like, then you would be as what he was. If he was a Jew based on the book of Matthew and the 4 Gospels, then you would say, well, we have to convert to Judaism. So all of the Christian world would be called Christians, right? Not Christians. They would be called Jews, not Christians, because Joshua was of the seed of, according to their book, of the seed of Judah, which obviously Joseph wasn't of the seed of Judah, right? So we don't understand how they tied that him into Judah or into David, right? But let's say for their doctrine's sake, right, because it can be confusion when you listen to it. When you see that Joshua was not a Christian, then where would you find the name or where would you find the doctrine that he taught? You can't say he taught Christianity, because if you say he taught Christianity, then you would say, what type of Christianity was it? What type of Christian was he? You can't say that he was a Baptist, because Baptist didn't exist. And if you say, well, we all would be Baptist because he was baptized, so everyone would be like a Baptist. Everyone should be considered a Baptist. You can't say, oh, he was exclusive. He taught Pentecostal because he spoke so-called spoke in tongues, right? Because he didn't speak the gibberish that the religious Pentecostals that we found that was created by the Pentecostal church, and they pulled out a specific verse that said the cloven tongues came out of heaven and the Holy Ghost came upon people. These group of men who gathered and spoke, it literally speaks about speaking their own language, their own tongue. They heard a specific language in their own tones, not some gibberish that the religious Pentecostal church speaks and is incomprehensible. So we know that goes out the window. He didn't speak. He didn't go to church on a Saturday when they say, well, we go Seventh-day Adventist. We're going to advance to this new doctrine, Seventh-day Adventist, which is what? To advance on a Saturday and call Saturday the Sabbath. That's why they call it seventh day or the Seventh-day Adventist, because they acknowledge they go to church on Saturday instead of Sunday. He wasn't that. So he didn't go on church on Saturday. According to the biblical text, he taught in a synagogue. And even in the synagogue and the temple, he was turning over tables because they were exchanging money in his father's house based on these stories. So if you want to address what he taught or what he learned, and to order to be like him, you would have to learn what he learned. And that doctrine you'll learn in Egypt. You'll learn the ancient mysteries and the spiritual science of Wu Sabat that we have been teaching on this podcast, and the actual facts have been given to us by the father, His Excellency Dr. Malachi Z. York, in the publications. Now, the question that came up about this, who this Christ being was, right, or is. The father teaches, and as we are all his students, for those that are listening, right? Why was there any? That's a great question. There wasn't any archaeological findings. There wasn't any. Someone just asked a question in the chat, so I will address certain questions in the chat, was there any archaeological evidence of Jesus Christ from the Bible? No, there's no DNA. Matter of fact, I was just researching whether or not they found any DNA. No. Whether they found any robes. No, they haven't found any robes or any artifacts, clothing. They haven't found any of the so-called crucifixion events, right? There's no logging of this execution. There's no logging of any birth in any of the records. They in Herod's time, a lot of people don't know Jerusalem was in Egypt at the time of that particular, the so-called event 2,000 years ago. Jerusalem was in Egypt. So all of that land was Egypt. So Joshua was actually traveled in Egypt and taught in Egypt, if that story is true. And you're not saying that they got it from Egypt, because we have a Christ or Joshua or Horus being in ancient Egypt, and he has a different name, and he was taught by a being known as Tehutwi or Zahutwi. And that story of Yahshua, the way, the truth, and the light, no one comes to the Father but by him, came out of ancient Egypt, right? So when you look at the comparison, you'll see that this Yahshua being and this Horus being, this being the son of Isis or Ashtat and the son of Osiris, right? And the miraculous conception or immaculate conception, as they say, being born without this sexual intercourse. You find that story in ancient Egypt. If you look at the symbols of ancient Egypt, where you find the falcon or the dove, right, which is a symbol of Horus in Egypt, right? The eye that they speak about, let thy eye be one, right? That's spoken of. This falcon or Horus being had this spiritual eye open. This is why you see this hawk being in ancient Egypt, or being with the Horus or hawk mask, right? Because he was able to see in distant spiritually. So you see that comparison there. But what you don't see is any evidence or proof, like this person just asked in the group, right? In the chat, why haven't we found any of the evidence of this character 2,000 years ago, when we found evidence of Yahshua or Horus, or what you called Jesus, right? In Egypt, you find evidence of his father, you find evidence of his mother, you find evidence, his stories is written there, but you won't find the Christian the Christian Christ, or this Christ being amongst the Jerusalem stories. You won't find any proof there. So it's very difficult for us to hinge in this day and time, where facts are available, to hinge an entire faith on misinformation. So I will address the question. So keep the questions coming. So it was a question asked. The question was asked, who is this Horus, and why is he significant to Sabaeans or Nuwaupu in this day and time? The reason, right? And the thing is very simple. When you see the story of in Egypt, you'll see the quote, this quote stolen that I mentioned about, quote stolen. You'll see titles stolen. You'll see events stolen. You'll see same replicas of ancient Egyptian stories in the New Testament. And it begs for us to acknowledge that these real stories that you find in Africa were copied and plagiarized and placed in the various books of monotheistic religion. Even the fight of Satuk and of Horus, you'll find that story in the stories of brothers having a war against each other, which we'll get into. The wise men, the wise men or three kings is the name of the three stars of the stars of Orion's belt. I'm reading where the father had mentioned the wise men and how that ties into ancient Egypt as well, which was Orion's star constellation, right, in the celestial equator near Gemini and Taurus, containing the stars of Betelgeuse, Regal. It is in the Middle English Orion. Now, when you see Orion's belt, you see these three stars, which are the three wise men. It's all symbolic when you look at the story. When you see the alignment of the opening of the mouth ceremony, where the son of the Pharaoh's Har must cause life to stir in Asard, right? At the exact moment of the early rising of this star constellation, where the Pharaoh is reborn and resurrected as his son. This is where they say, well, I and my father are one. They got the story of the resurrection of Asard being born into Horus or Harar, or the rebirth out of this text where it says the spirit of God came into Yahshua. In ancient Egypt, the story was Asard as the father, his spirit, a double portion, entered into the son, which was Horus, right? But the Yahshua story or Jesus story was copied from that. When you look at certain books by the master teacher, when he wrote Pagatat, which is the gateway, in verse 16, it speaks about the same incident in a more modern times. It says, when this comes, my son Asar will live again soon on in the form of serpents, Kurhat shedding the skin to become hard as Rehar Akat. So Rehar Akat or Horus is the rebirth, or this, let's say, has a portion of the spirit of Asar. And this you will find in Pagatat or the gateway, which you can get if you email. Obviously those that have been emailing will have access to the publications. We'll tell you exactly where to get them from. You see also reflected the same story. The father shows or explains certain portions of this story scattered in the various patarak and publications. Now, in verse 28 of the crown, it says, I Pamanzal Nasdar Amunna Babre Akfata Zetwi, and the one will enter Paranan at Jawef Pasajal, the names inside of the record. He's the one to write the names of each of the individuals who have made themselves or transformed themselves in this day and time with these actual facts to perfect themselves, right? And when you perfect yourself, you will be able to have or accept and be blessed with extended life or a double resurrection. And this being Padabab Yanun is responsible for writing the names of each individual in the records. And this is what he is explaining. I, Pamenzal, and his daughter, Amunabab Re'eg Akfata, Panabab Yanun, will soon come down off the Ankh, right? Meaning that, and in his crucifixion, which he's been tormented, he's been tortured in this day and time, has given himself everything given of himself to us in order for us to live again and to breathe real life and to have the mind opening up with reasoning and factual information. And because of that, he was persecuted, or as he says, he has been crucified. But he says here in verse 26, he will soon come down off the Ankh by the powers of Sakam Tut and Hathar, the daughters of Neith, their Ak, in order to raise, this is what he says, in order to raise Rehar Akatwi, the son of far away of the two risings out of the east, right? At Tumbre and the west at Munre, the two horizons to complete the 24,000 year journey. Good question, Born. I got you. That Joshua was not killed for practicing sorcery. It was another son who was another Joshua or another Jesus that was killed for sorcery, and that was Bar Jesus. They have the Jesuses mixed up, and you'll find that in the book of Acts. There's a book called The Three Jesuses that the Father has written that is available that you can, right? It was exactly his son. Joshua had children, right? This character of 2,000 years ago in their text, they acknowledge he had children. They acknowledge he had a wife. So though that question is a very good question, because people are not aware that there are three Jesuses in the book, in the Bible. And one of them by the name of Bar Jesus, and you have Jesus Justus, who was the son of Cleophas and Cleopatra. They had a secret son, right, who was known as the Holy Ghost, or the ghost being, because he wasn't accepted by either side because of the sex act that happened at an actually orgy, that where Cleopatra got pregnant by, right, by Caesar, and because they had to keep it a secret, Jesus Cleophas, right, was not logged in as one of the sons or a part of the family. So he became what they considered a ghost, meaning absent in that sense, because he wasn't he was born out of wedlock. Okay, Joshua had 5 children, 3 boys. Yes, he had. This is in. We also have an actual fact that I'll get into. So let's finish covering what the father speaks about this being in actual fact time. Right. So it says the main purpose of Yadnun, one of the purposes of Yadnun, the father, was and is to breed this holy being. He speaks about this in feeding of the forces, as well as the man from planet Risk. Now, what does he say in feeding the forces? Right? Did Joshua evade or escape the authorities on that day as time as well? Yes, he did. Okay, so y'all keep the questions coming, because we're going to go back and forth. Yes, he did escape and evade the arrest. This is why in the New Testament, in the book of Matthew, where the disciples fell asleep and he went and prayed for the cup of crucifixion to pass by him, he was heard. And you'll find that, and let's go there, right? You'll find this crucifixion story in the book of Matthew, where he's requesting that the Father let the cup of crucifixion pass from him. You'll find that in Matthew's 26:39. Let's go there real quick, since you want to. We're going to dance all around, all over this thing today. So in Matthew's 26, right, when people asked about the crucifixion, the problem is that the Muslims claim that Jesus wasn't crucified. Right? The Jews take credit for so-called killing him when it was really the Romans. But the Quran says that the Jews did not kill Jesus, nor did they crucify him, but it was made to look that way. Right? When you read that verse, you'll see that they are correct. The Quran is correct in that sense, that Jesus was not killed by the Jews. It was the Romans. And if it says in that verse that Jesus or Yahshua his crucifixion was made to look that way, then you have to ask the Muslims, who made it look that way? If you're saying Allah made it look like Jesus was crucified, then you're confirming that Allah is responsible for the crucifixion, or at least it appearing to the world that he was crucified. So Allah will be responsible for Christianity in that sense, if you look at it in a right knowledge perspective. But when you see in the book of Matthew, let's go there in verse 26, chapter 26, verse 39, when he asks for the cup of crucifixion to pass from him, 39, it says, right, and he went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, "Oh my God, oh my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me." This cup is the cup of crucifixion. Back to this person's question, right? When you say that, was he spared? Yes, he was spared, because he prayed, and they literally says blood was coming out of his pores, sweat was coming out of his pores like blood, because he was asking not to die. And if you say, according to the religious doctrine, that the father listened to Joshua and he was accepting of his son's prayers, and he would do anything his son would do, he was perfect in his life, why wouldn't he allow his son not to be crucified? It says it right there. It says, "Oh my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as my will," right? "Not as my will, but let thy will be done." Right? And you see that in verse 39. Now, what happens in the book of Matthew, when you move forward, it speaks about how, I'm getting text from different people, right? So just bear with me if my mind goes from one place to another, right? People are texting me, asking me questions, and it's cool. It's good. I don't have a problem with the questions. Now, when you see when you see that this question was asked, don't you think Jesus would have, or Yahshua, his father, would have listened to him? Don't you think that he would have spared his life if he asked for the cup of crucifixion? This cup there that's speaking about is the cup of suffering. They call it the blood. They said this is the blood that was shed. So he asked for this cup to be passed from him. If Yahshua of 2,000 years ago, as you say, as they say, he was came to this planet to die. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, and that was his destiny. Why would he be afraid, or why would he ask for the cup of crucifixion to pass from him? Because that wasn't what he was sent for, right? He was not. He was very much afraid to die. No one wants to get crucified, the nails in your arm, and that was something that he was not planning on doing, right? So this cup represents crucifixion, and most of your Christian commissary acknowledge that. So let's get to this. The question, someone asked another question about Jesus having a son. Okay, we covered that. Let's get to what the Father speaks about this being, because we want to cover these actual facts first. Exactly. And why tell the disciples to buy swords? Yes, he told the disciples to buy swords, sell your swords, sell your sandals to buy swords, because they were ready to fight. Just to go through the story for those that are not aware, in the story, in the garden, this was the book of Barnabas spoke about. The book of Barnabas says that in the garden, when Yahshua went and prayed, he was offered up security that he was not going to die. So he came forth, and when he came forth, he had an aura about himself. When you read the story, and you see when Yahshua approached them in the garden after his disciples had fell asleep, he said, "Whom seek ye?" Yahshua said, "Whom seek ye?" They said, "Jesus of Nazareth." He said, "I said, I am he. If you're looking for me, I'm him." And they didn't believe it was him. And because they didn't know it was him, this is why Judas was supposed to place a kiss on the cheek to identify him. But according to the book of Barnabas, which they left out, Barnabas explains that Yahshua, when he came forth, the Romans were converted when Peter drew his sword and cut off the soldier's ear, and Yahshua picked it up and put it on his head, and it healed him on the spot. So if he picked up an ear and healed this soldier, the disciples and the soldiers at the time, when they watched this miracle, they were converted. They knew they couldn't do anything to him. And that's why it says, "Behold, I am he." They fell back to the ground. And when you look at the story, they had lanterns. They were in the middle of the night in the garden. There were no street lights. You have to put yourself there at the event. When you place yourself there, you acknowledge, when you see that they fell to the ground, literally look at the story. It says they fell to the ground. All of their lanterns had hit the ground. Jesus was telling them, "I'm he," right? And at that moment, Judas was transfigured to look like Yahshua. And this is the part that was left out, because this was the miracle that the disciples had slept on. The disciples fell asleep and they were not able to witness this event. That's why Yahshua said, "Could you not stay awake with me 1 hour so I can show you the miracle?" You missed the miracle in his prayer, because he asked the Father not to die. And that's why he came forth and said, "Put up your sword, because the cup that the Father giveth me, shall I not drink it?" Meaning he would not get crucified. So he was already aware of the security that the Father gave him, that he would not die. So the story that is missing out of the Gospels, or so-called Gospels, or Gospels, right? What was missing is the events that took place, because they weren't able to write it down, and most of the disciples were not. Luke wasn't a disciple. He just wrote down, as you read in the book of Luke, the first chapter. I'm writing just because everyone else wrote. If you look at the book of, let's read it real quick so you see what I'm talking about, so you can find out the type of mentality that we're using, or people that we're using to recall these events. He was not there. He was not a witness. He says, "For as much," this is Luke speaking, "for as much as many have taken in hand to set forth in order a declaration of those things which are most surely believed amongst us, even as they delivered them unto us, which from the beginning were eyewitnesses." He said, "Even as they delivered them unto us." Not that I was there. He said, they delivered them unto us, which from the very beginning were eyewitnesses, right? And ministers of the word. It seemed good to me also, having had perfect understanding of all things from the very first, the right unto thee in order, the most excellent Theophilus. So he was writing because everyone else wrote and because they were witnesses. And he said, it seemed good to me also, so I'm going to write. So the story of the disciples in the garden and the cutting of the ear and them converting on the spot and grabbing Judas instead. And this is why Joshua was hiding in the garden as a gardener, right? Because when Mary came to see where the body of the tomb, the body was in the tomb, he was already disguised. That's why when he asked Mary, whom seek ye? She said, my Lord, if you knew why they have buried him, then let me know. And she was not even aware that Yahshua or Jesus was who he was to her. And she literally came and knew this person, knew him, and he was married to him, was very close to him. You know, she was close to him because according to Judaic law, you can't go and wash the body of a male that's not your family member or not your husband. So why would she come and retrieve the body of a person that's not related to her or not married to her or is not her brother or not her father, right? So it actually had to be her husband. So this is why she came and sought his body. But when you read the story, you'll see where she said, right? She turned herself and he said, Mary. And she turned herself, it says. She turned herself, said, Mary, it is me. And then she recognized him. She's supposing him to be a gardener. Why would he be hiding still in the garden as a gardener, hiding? Because according to the book of Barnabas, they grabbed Judas instead. And this is why Judas was going throughout the court, and they were asking him questions, and they couldn't find anything guilty upon him because he was like, look, I just came to do what you all asked me to do. And because Judas and Joshua were of the same tribe, they didn't have different clothes. They actually had the same haircut, not even haircut. They had the same hair. They had the same beard, everything. They looked like each other. This is why when you read the book of Matthew, actually the book of Matthew chapter 17, you'll see that don't say that transfiguration was difficult or wasn't something that they did or something that Yahshua was able to do. He was able to transfigure himself. When you read the book of Matthew chapter 17, verse 2, you'll see it says, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun. This is Yahshua spoken of here, being transfigured. So he was transfigured several times. That's not the only verse. This is the one where he was the light, the sun shone around his head. He was lit up. He was bright. And it says, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white and as of light. The same thing happened in the garden. When he came forth and he said, I'm he was lit up. His face was transfigured. So they didn't know who he was, and they all fell to the ground. And he said, get up. If I'm who you're looking for, then come grab me. And a fight broke out. And when the fight broke out, there was a scuffle. According to this is in the book of Barnabas and the records that they left out. The fight broke out and they grabbed Judas instead. Jesus ran into the garden, hid for 3 days. And this is why there's a discrepancy in the book of Easter, right? But not book of Easter. It is a book of Esther. But in the fallacy of Easter, which is a book that you can get written by Dr. Malachi Z. York, where they say, well, he died on a Friday and resurrected on a Sunday. That's not 3 days and 3 nights. Right. So because Yahshua was hiding in the garden after the commotion took place and he was disguised as a gardener, he came forth and saw Mary, and Mary thought him to be disguised as a gardener because he was in his gardener's clothes. He was hiding. And when he met his disciples in the upper room, the first thing he asked them, because he didn't eat, he said, have ye any meat? Because he was hungry. And he said, it's me. They thought he was crucified. They thought they had killed him. And it was no. He's like, no, I'm him. Look at me. Touch my skin. And when people say, well, he said, touch my wounds. These were wounds from the fight. Literally a fight broke out. It was dark. They were trying to grab Judas. Jesus was trying to get away. The disciples were there. They ran, a bunch of punks. They were afraid. They fell asleep. They couldn't even stay with him for an hour to see the miracle. So this was why the book of Barnabas was left out, because those specifics were in there. And this is why Muslims say that they didn't crucify Jesus. It was made to look that way. Also, another reason in your biblical text, you know that Yahshua lived to be 120 years is because they give his description in the book of Revelations, according to your text. They said he had hair like lamb's wool and feet as brass as if it were burned in a furnace. You can't have hair white as wool at the age of 33. Read the text. It says his head and his hairs were white. That means that he had gray or old. He was of old age. This is what they don't want to tell you. They don't want to explain that because they don't know. You only have, according to this, the Gospels, 4 years of his life, from the age of 29 to 33. You don't have 29 before the age of 29. You don't have what he learned in ancient Egypt. You don't have the spiritual science that he learned. The spiritual science that he learned was your spiritual science that you're being taught, introduced by Melchizedek or Tehutwi or Zahutwi, who was the high priest that Yahshua of 2,000 years ago was taught under. He was taught by Melchizedek. He was taught by Michael. He was taught by Ningizida or Malachi Zadok or Malachi York or Malachi Kobina York, Malachi Zadok York or Kobina York. Some people know him as York El. He was known as Nanya Malachi or Pamanzal. He has many different names, but names for the sake of the conversation and the lecture. Melchizedek is spoken of in the book of Hebrews, chapter 6 and chapter 7, where Yahshua was, according to that book, that he was taught, he was a high priest after the order of Melchizedek. Well, Yahshua was taught by Melchizedek in the Egyptian mystery schools. Melchizedek was known as Tehutwi. And this is why when you read, right, this, when you read the verse that we were speaking about, where he says he will come down off the ark to teach Rehar Akatwi, right, the transformational powers that's been given to us by Atum Re, right? It says, let's read it. It says, in order to raise, let's go back to this point, right? In order to raise Rehar Akatwi, son of far away, of the two rising, and this is in the verse 27 of the crown. Verse 25, I'll read it again. Verse 26, I Pamanzal and Nesdor Amun Nabab Re'e Akfata Zedi will soon come down off the Ankh by the powers of Sekemtet and Hathor, the daughters of Neith, by Ak, in order to raise Rehar Akatwi. Right? This is the reoccurrence of the same event, where this being, Malachi Zadok Melchizedek, will raise this being up, right? Son of far away, of the two risings, out of the east, Atum Re, and the west, Amun Re, the two horizons, to complete the 24,000-year journey, 1 year per mile around the planet, from planet Pa-Meye as the source of life, the long-awaited return of Har Pa-Amun, son of Asar and Ashtat. So this being still exists, right? And he has to be taught, and he will be taught by the same being that taught him 2,000 years ago, the same being that initiated him into the mystery schools in ancient Makmet, right? The same being that's responsible for teaching you all to be like Christ, so you can be taught the actual facts, and you will be the saviors to the world, because they're waiting on you to pass this information on. And this, when you, let's move forward so you'll understand what the Father's job is continuously doing, even in this day and time. So one of the main purpose of Panabab Yanun in incarnation is and was to breed the holy thing called Horus or Rehar Katwi, feeding the forces. Let's go to feeding the forces. Feeding the forces, it says, we panatharu amun re declare to anyone, listen, anyone who accepts him in truth, the true manifestation of per rea amun nub reak fatah, who brings forth rehar akat, who brings forth rehar akat, pa masu, pa amun, as hard, right? And exhibits such devotion of the integrity of character and good works as Nuwaupians, as Sabaeans, that he is saved from hell. So you do have a Yahshua, you as an African people, not the Christ of the Bukasu. They have their God, they have their Christ. Every race has their Christ, has a Savior sent to them. There's over 14. There's a book called The 14 Messiahs. They have a Messiah in the Hindu culture. They have a Messiah in most of the religious doctrines, right? But you as a race, you have one, right, that you have to align yourself with, that is being taught and will be raised up by Pa Nathar, Pa Amun Nabab Re Akfata, Pa Nabab Yanun, right? As he's speaking of in his writings. Ray Harakat will have a program. This is in our doctrine. So for those that are not clear, I'm just giving the actual facts. I hope I'm clear in the sources that the Father has given us. According to 142 of Feeding the Forces, Rehar Akatwi, this being that Panabab Yanun will raise up, it says his program is directing of its energy, the life essence, out of the physical plane, where it engenders, right? Causes or engenders means causes or gives rising to feeling, situations, or conditions, where it engenders expanding consciousness and the welcoming of new and diverse life experiences into the ethereal realm. Do I need to read that again? This is Rehar Akatwi's program, according to Feeding the Forces. Verse 142. His program is directing of its energy, the life's essence, out of the physical plane. We went over the spiritual plane, the spiritual abode, the abodes in episode 4. Listen to that again so you understand what it means by the physical plane. There's a specific explanation or meaning when you talk about the spiritual plane, what it consists, the physical plane, what it consists of, where it engenders expanding consciousness and welcoming of new and diverse life's experiences. So you're to have new experiences and diverse life experiences. But the program is to take the life force of the physical, everything that you're experiencing here in the physical, new experiences in this new physical abode. Your new and diverse physical experiences, not old experiences, new experiences, diverse life experiences, right? What does it say? It says, expanding conscious and welcoming of the new and diverse life experiences into the ethereal realm in order, listen to this very clearly, in order to feed these experiences that you are having as descendants of your ancestors, right? Rehar Akatwi, right? The program that Panabab Yanun has instilled into, or will raise to give this being, he will do what? Feed predatorial. It says preying naturally on others. What does it mean, predatory? It means that in the etheric realm, you have predatory forces or your ancestors that feed off of your life experiences. They have to feed off of you because you're moving into a new conscious grid in this new cycle. And this new cycle will give you new life experiences, diverse life experiences. And with that conscious mind, you'll be able to feed your ancestors Wu Sabat, your spiritual science. Again, they have to be fed that in the etheric realm. This is why your chanting and prayers are important. This is why your acknowledgement of your ancestors and accepting them and acknowledging the genes that they, the blood, the body, the soul that they've given you, the physical being, your African genetics, the abilities you have to take the sun's light and convert it to energy like photosynthesis, the melanin that you have, the ability that your solar panels and which is your iris to take in the sun's heat and maintain a 98.9 degree temperature. The continent, the African continent that you're supposed to be on, to breathe and experience the land of your ancestors. You have to what? In the ethereal realm, in order to feed predatory, so don't think predatory is something negative. No, it's not. Predatory, discarnate, not physical. This is in our doctrine, okay? So those that, if you want this publication, email me so you can get clear. I hope I'm being clear. Yes, breaking generation, that's what we're doing, right? So discarnate entities, right? So you have to feed predatory, discarnate, not physical entities, and the splinted, broken, tormented. That means tormented a severe mental and physical suffering or suffering spirits of a race's ancestors. This is why this is the program that Rehar Akatwi is introducing or will be teaching in whatever way that is necessary for you all to do what? Feed your ancestors positive new experiences. Why? Because they died before this time. They died before they were able to get the actual facts. They died before they transitioned before they were able to see you in your cultural attire. They transitioned before that they were able to have the spell broken on them in the physical. So they were tormented in the physical. They were enslaved in the physical. They were raped and tortured and hung and tarred and feathered, decapitated, castrated under religious doctrines. So they were tormented by other races, other spirit beings. So when they transition, right, to the other side, they transition in a suffering state. So they're in limbo, waiting for you to wake up and break away from the same spirit forces that kept them in bondage. So according to 142, right, you have, in order to feed discarnate entities and splintered, which are broken, tormented spirits of a race's ancestors. This is what Rehar Akatwi's job is. And so this transformational power, right? This is a transformational power. Why is it a transformational power? Because this transformational power gives you the ability or the ability to transform others and to be transformed by Rehar Akatwi from Panabab Yanun. This is in the doctrine. This is not something coming from Duswa. So I don't want people to go say, oh, he's teaching this. No, I'm reading, but I'm explaining to it for those that don't have the publications or are not aware. Unreasonable punishment for colonial laws. Right. So this transformational power has been transferred to this being by way of Atum Re. Now let's read how this transformational power has been given by Atum Re to this being Rehar Akatwi. It says in verse 2, it says, you have testified, okay, you have testified that Perea Amun Nuwaupian is here to bring in Rehar Akat Pamasu. Now it says Kefre, Capri, Capra, the black scarab beetle as seen as a mortal man. So a lot of people, right, when they see this mortal, when they see this scarab beetle, let's talk about the scarab beetle, right? Okay, 1 second. Let's listen to this because you see the scarab beetle. For those that don't know, the scarab beetle is a. It looks like it looks like the beetle. Now beetles are phenomenal. I don't know if y'all know much about beetles and why the Egyptians acknowledge beetles, the scarab as a charm on our land on Tamaray. There was a scarab in the mirror, right? The Black Pyramid, you would rub it, right? It's called, I think, Nubic name was Dabub or Dabab. I'm not sure of the Sabbatic name of it. It's on the tip of my tongue. For those, if you remember, type it in the chat, right? But you would rub this as a good luck charm. But the significance of it is so vital to now. Let me go into explaining it, right? In this verse 2, the same book, Feeding the Forces, it says, you've testified that Perea Amanub Reakfata is here to bring in Rehar Akat Pamasu, Kepre, Kepra, Kapira, the black scarab beetle, as seen as a mortal man with a scarab over his head and a black scarab beetle and a large black scarab beetle sitting in the solar boat and rolling the disc as Atum-Re at dawn. Now, Atum-Re at dawn is the rising or resurrection of the new life. Atum-Re, of course, is the Father, right? Atum-Re, Atun-Re, and Amun-Re, right? This is the three positions of the Son, the source, the Heavenly Father, right? Our deity in flesh, our God in flesh, right? Now, this being, this transformational power, according to our ancient ancestors, our Nathar, they taught that the scarab beetle's job was to resurrect the sun's light back in the sky from Amun-Re, which is the hidden one. The Father as a hidden being right now, being incarcerated, right? Not seen by the world, but his light still shines. The transformational power is taking effect by the freedom fight. Why? Because we have to push the Father's light, the Son's light, back into the sky at dawn for the new day, which means a double resurrection. This is what he's speaking about here. It says, Atum-Re is at dawn, or the rising or resurrection of new life, the rebirth. So he has to be reborn in the sky again. And mortal beings, those who are fighting to maintain a straight linear line, to do what? The straight linear line is what the scarab beetle does when he rolls the dung ball out of the literally dung in the word, which is crap, poop. Those that don't know, right? The dung beetle rolls fecal matter of animals in such a straight line that it's almost perfect when scientists studied the abilities of this beetle to push 60 times its weight almost. One is one of the strongest beings on the planet. I think it's strong, almost strong as an ant. So it's able to roll this dung. That's why you see the scarab rolling the dung, which is a job that most people don't want to do. Most people, no one is going to go voluntarily be in the muck of the of animal poop, right? Get a hold of the sick. Get a hold if you let me know, right? Spinning son of the of though. Okay. Okay. So what happens is this scarab beetle transforms or takes this what looks like lifeless dung, which is crap, which is almost dead, and it rolls and keeps rolling, toils night and day. And then in the morning, when this dung beetle is perfected into a round ball, life emerges from it. This is the miracle of the dung beetle. What is not seen is the seeds that's placed inside of the dung, the eggs that allows it to hatch. So it appears to be a miracle when all of a sudden this dung is being crap is being rolled, and all of a sudden you watch it, and the next morning life emerges from it. And it's like, how did that happen? Just from it being rolled. There's a secret process that takes place. It's the feminized seed that seed is inside the laying or of the eggs inside of the dung that most people don't see. So this transformational power is symbolic of what we're going through in the worst of conditions, having our Father in a amun state or hidden state while we roll this dung ball, right? This dung ball is we're trying to create new life out of waste. What appears as though our nation being laid to the wayside. Everything is being the slander, the gossip, the lies about who our Father is. And therefore, we are in the look what appears to be the worst or in a bunch of crap. That's why crap is being thrown our way. Lies, slander, gossip, trials, cases being misinformation, falsehoods, all types of manners of evil against us. And now we have to take that same crap and roll it into what? A dung ball, and make life emerge from it, and in a miraculous way, which we're doing now. And this is what it says. The dawn of Atum Re unto Atum Kefre into Re Har Akat, or the rebirth of Amun Re, as Pamesu is coming now. This transformational power of Atum Kefre, Atum Re, is the power that Panabab, the Father, has given this being the ability to transform him or her mortal self to immortality. This is the transformation, because you're steadfast. But I'm not done with the beetle, because the beetle is an actual Sabaean. It is an actual stargazer. It knows the heavenly abode. It knows this. It uses the sky, the sun, as a star map in order to follow the horizon. And we'll get into that. Let's move forward into verse 5. It says, Kefre, meaning transformational power of Re, is the sun. And this is why Yahshua is always used as the sun, S-U-N. And they because they took it from Horus, or they took it from Harar, who is Re Har Akat of that day and time. So this being who is symbolic of the sun is not the sun, but he has a portion of the Son, of the Father, and therefore represents the Father in the transformational powers that he was given, he or she is given to become immortal in the resurrection of Amun Re, out of the darkness into new life in the new resurrection. And that's why they say, or Jesus had resurrected, and you see him rising over or coming over the horizon, or Harar, horizon, where they get the word horoscope from, where they get the word horror from, right? You see it. This is the same being. They adopted it and used it in the religious text. And it says, Kefre, meaning transformational power of Re in the sun at dawn on the eastern horizon, Africa, of Kefre, passing on power to Atum Re, resurrection, freedom, who then transforms it to Rehar Akatwi, the second of the two lions. This unique being, and this is coming from the publications again. Oh, is there a question? I see Born King. What is your is a confusion there? Or am I clear as we move forward? So it says this being has always existed with, so This being has always existed with the Father. This is why Yahshua said, I and my Father are one. It speaks about this in verse 29 of Zehutui's vision. Let's get into the actual facts of this being. Atumre, Atun Amun Amun. Amen. Exactly. Amen. I mean, religious world uses this all the time. Right. Now, we're talking about Rehar Akatwi or Harar, right? From the actual facts, as a portion of the Father, having a soul of the Father, the same way Horus or Harar had the soul of Asar, right? Resurrecting fighting for the life of Asar. This is why he was fighting Satuk and these different beings, right? And the enemies of Asar, right? So it says here that in original creation, which we have a lecture coming up soon on I think the 19th, today's the 9th, original creation. We're going to cover original creation. We're going to touch on it now. I mean, I could touch on the religious books, but we covered so much the religious books. Let's get into the actual facts of who this being is. Covered Yahshua. The books are fake. We all covered the Sinaiticus. We covered the Codex. We know the books were copied. We all are aware of that. What the Father says in verse 29, he says this: the mystery and holy word. This is why they adopted the religious text that says Jesus was the word made flesh. How does this known, or where did they get this from? They got this from Zehutui's doctrine and the teachings on the son of Asar becoming flesh or manifesting the Bimbin out of the primordial abyss. You'll read this in verse 29 of Zehutui's vision. It says, then out of imprisoned dark, a mysterious and holy word. Because a lot of people are not aware that how did the word become flesh? Well, the words come from a thought. Words come from a tone, from a sound. The sound comes from a thought. Hu, he, hika, and sia, the magical word that was spoken by the Father, and Hu, he manifested the magical powers through the Benben, which is the flaming sword or Cleopatra's needle, which is the phallus, the Cleopatra's needle that was responsible for ejaculating into the primordial abyss of space to see the life in existence, to see the life on various planets. Let's read it. 29. Then out of the imprisoned dark, a mysterious and holy word who came forth and took its place, becoming Hika, the magical power of energy, and Sia, personifying the principle of the mental. Are you all following me? I hope I'm clear. Asar, the Father, spoke with this who into existence. Asar spoke. The Father spoke. God spoke. And the word became flesh. It says, 48, Asar has spoken a word who, which became Hika, Sia, 3 in 1, as he is. 49, the word was reason, and by the reason of the word, invisible things were made visible. This is where the word became flesh. This is how things became into the visible world, how reasoning began to manifest and life began to grow out of the chaotic waters from the voice or the tones of Asar, the Heavenly Father, and his words spoke and gave birth to the Son. This is why the Master Secrets speak about the one unique gene or the one unique atom that was through a massive amount of pressure what came out of the feminine as a single atom, or this one unique son, right? And which is gold. It says, and Asar had spoken. Okay, so it says, and the Christian world had picked up this doctrine. The word became flesh. The word was spoken by Asar, the heavenly father of Horus, came out of the chaos, manifesting a Benben or the obelisk, a symbol of sovereignty. This is why we resurrected the obelisk on the land. This is why obelisks are used on all of sovereign nations. When you have a sovereign nation, they resurrect the obelisk because it represents sovereignty, because it represents your connection to the divine. It represents your connection to your Nathard or your overseers or your overlords. Every race has these overlords. Our deities are the oldest and the first and the only of natural nature. Therefore, our sovereignty was first. This is why Heliopolis, Thebes, and Memphis were the first, what? First sovereign cities. Look it up, where the first treaties were made came out of Heliopolis, Thebes, and Memphis, which is what? HTM. The acronym, we used it as Holy Tabernacle Ministries for those that go back that far. On our Tamaray, on our capital city, the capital seat of Wahani, right? In Tamaray, in what you call York County, in Nuwaupian, or what you call Nuwaupian, right? The land of the Sabaeans, where we erected our obelisk, because it was a reestablishment of our connection to our overseers, as you see, as a Bimbim, which was, they use the same symbol in Washington, D.C., because they want you all to know they have a sovereign overlords who are the Pleiadians, and we talked about that in one of the previous lectures I did, the Pleiadians layout of the United States, of the U.S. You'll see that in one of the videos. You can check that out. We did a lecture on that, on how they laid out the U.S. and they squared it off within due bounds, right? So that sovereign needle in every capital city across the world. You go to Paris, you can go through even Athens, Greece. You could go through Rome, right? You see the obelisk. You go to London, you see the obelisk. You go France, many different places. Italy, you see the obelisk. Most of their capital cities where they say we're sovereign, they got it from us, from this doctrine, from this real Joshua, real Horus story and events that actually were proven to take place. Now, it says, the penis of Asard, or Kadab of Asard, Atum, in the story of Osiris, Iris birthing Horus without sex. When this is where they got the penis cut off, Asar's phallus was cut, and the story of Isis looking for the 14 pieces, right? 13 plus the phallus, which was used to impregnate her with Horus as an immaculate conception, was a part of a ritual that took place with men, which goes into our ancient Egyptian secrets, where genetic splicing and in vitro fertilization takes place as well, but not necessarily through, we had advanced science where we could implant the seed in a sperm, and the sperm of a male could be ejaculated into the feminine, and the seed of that procreation was born out of 3 parents. The holder of the seed, the genes from the seed of the father, inseminated or placed inside of the semen of the host, and not the host, let's say the contributor, the male, who would ejaculate that seed into the feminine. So that would be a 3-part parentage, which they're just finding out is true. It's called a chimera, right? Where there's cases right now in the world where a child is born and it doesn't have the genetics of the mother. It will have the genetics of other people, and literally 2 other people, or a small percentage from the mother, a small percentage from the father, and another percentage from another person, or a previous sexual encounter that the mother had. The genes is done. These are phenomena that scientists are now just understanding, but this was being done in ancient Egypt. So when they say that Joshua with Joseph, or the story of Joseph, the angel Gabriel, and Mary, you see that where it was 3 people, right? Where you have Gabriel coming in unto Mary, in the story of who was Jesus' father. We have a book called Who is Jesus' Father, where the master, our father, expressed that Gabriel was the father of Jesus with Joseph, which is a whole nother conversation, which speaks about the in vitro fertilization and how he went in unto her. But it was an insemination, a seeding that took place so this special child could be born. But this is not anything new. You'll learn how to do it eventually. But let's move forward. It says, the word who, the voice of the dark, rose out of the chaos as a great pillar, a kadab, and the ray and the air followed after it. Right? So you see that this great pillar rose out of what? The dark. This was the word being spoken and being made flesh through the ejaculation of this panspermia, is known as. When you talk about panspermia, you're talking about meteors, right, that have DNA on the tip, genes on the tip of the head of the panspermia, the tail, it's on the head of the tail of the sperm or the seed of the creation of the universe that seeds planets when they land on the egg of the womb in the womb of primordial space. And planets are seeded by this manner. Look up panspermia. This is known in original creation. Okay, so it says that in verse 30. Now it says, as Huhi and Huhi, which appeared as a pillar of Atum's kadab of force, like a gold flame, shot out of darkness. He is the son of Nathar, born out of the mystery of the mind. This being Harar or Horus, right? Yahshua or Jesus, being born without sex. This was done in the original creation. This is why they say Jesus was with the Father in the beginning of time. This is why you hear the Father say there was no before Yahshua. There was no before Jesus, not in the physical realm. Because all of human beings know from the human beings up, your mediator would be this Harar, who was the, let's say, no one gets to the Father but through him, because he was your mediator to the heavens, to Nathardo, because Panathardo, as pure beings intermingling amongst human beings, you weren't pure enough or transformed enough to be amongst the Nathar. So you had to be transformed by one who was transformed or has the transformational powers. And this was this being Horus or Rehar Akatsui, that the Father is going to raise. It says, that gives life throughout the world. And in the most literal sense, this event is termed as what? The Big Bang. This is what they call the Big Bang, where everything happened from a nucleus, a seed, right? Which is, right, a seed, or out of primordial abyss, the womb of the feminine. This goes into original creation. This is before the biblical story. This is a higher science that the Father is explaining and teaching us, and we just have to grasp it while we have the time. So let's move forward. He says that this Bimben, which is the seed or carrier of life, right? And it would seed the planets. And this is why the holy seed that Christ was born from, you look at verse 27 of the Stargate. These are books or publications that the master teacher's Heavenly Father has written, over 1,500 books. Email me. You'll see the email in the description box. You can get any one of the Christ series. The Christ series are available. The actual facts are available. But let's read what verse 27 says of Pagatat, the Stargate. It says, this Bimben stone, we're talking about Bimben, as an extraterrestrial meaning, extra on terra, from the astral sense, right? From the astral stone from beyond space, was of the seed of Atum, right? To become atoms, to become cells, to become atom. So the seed of Atum coming from this explosive, accurate panspermia, ejaculation from the invisible world made visible, or nothing into something, from the etheric world into the physical world, the energy and the life force that sustains the material world comes from the Agduad and the Nathar of the spiritual etheric world, headed by the mind of the Father, the supreme mind, the mind of the Father, manifesting his seed in the material mother, Nun, the feminine energy that we spoke about in uh episode 9, right? Seeding the universe, right? This seed ejaculated as panspermia does, bringing all the primordial seed, the ancient seeds, onto different planets. This is why you have various life forms that are just coming into existence, because life forms are just being born, depending on what seed or what conception took place in various pockets of the universe. There's 9 spheres or 9 pockets in the known as multiverses, and they were created from the Big Bang, or let's say the eruption or the explosion of material matter, and an all expanding material is moving throughout all. And these events are occurring all the time. You are part of this massive time expansion that's moving what you think is forward, but it's moving more so outward, not forward, because behind you, around you, all around is the expansion of time. It says 33, the father says that Hika Sia, the Ben, right? Tua. It says the Hika Hui Sea, Hui Hika and Sia, the Ben, the black stone, was in fact one of the many seeds of Atum, as a comet like stone from Sahu or Sa'at, Orion, outer space, that brought forth life to the earth. That's what the Kaaba is. That's one of the secrets of the Kaaba, that it's a part of this stone, panspermia, that came from this great primordial abyss and landed on this planet and seeded the planet. So they kept it secret and sacred, and they call it the black stone, which is really a brown stone. They say, oh, it's the placenta of Adam, but they don't want to tell you that it's actually a seed. So so when we talk about this, any questions? When we talk about this Kefre, this solar deity was responsible, like we talked. Let's get back to that real quick, unless we have any questions we need to address. I hope I'm clear. Did we touch on the things that was needed to be touched on? But I do want to I want to go into this scarab, because as a Sabaean, or as a stargazer, right? That's why they watch this scarab beetle with um such just awe, because of its ability. When you watch the scarab beetle, they understood that it had the ability to move in a straight line away from the pile of dung, as it says, right? And they didn't know how it was able to follow a straight line. Then they understood that it was actually following the sun. And when it went dark, they actually was following the Milky Way, the stars. They mapped the stars, and based on the maps of the heavens, they were able to navigate to a specific point to get the dung to a specific spot in the location to seed it in order for life to come out of it. This is a part of the scarab beetle's miraculous powers. And it became adopted by the ancient Egyptians as a miraculous insect, or a miraculous deity, because of its ability to map the stars. Most human beings can't map stars. They don't know what star constellation it are in right now. They can't tell you what zodiac sign you'll see 7 o'clock in the AM over the horizon, right? In the eastern sky or the southern sky. They don't have that type of knowledge, but the scarab beetle does. The intelligence of it was incredible to them. So it was able to navigate the sun as navigation, and it's able to see other celestial bodies as it began to navigate as navigation tools as well. And its ability to use the sun to navigate at night, it was discovered that the scarab beetle not only used the moon, but also on moonless nights. This is another miraculous miracle about this scarab beetle. On moonless nights, it was discovered that they were also astronomers and were able to use even the Milky Way. Now, that's incredible. For it to use the Milky Way as it navigated its role, is done to a specific location. Now, let's move forward, because we have some we have some they have some we have some letters from the father that speaks about the transformation of Rehar Katwi or Yahshua, right? This being becoming of the son Malachi 4:2, right? He says, and this is from a letter dated June 26, 2017. When he speaks about Kefre or Kepri, the deity was also a mark of the time. So we're marking the time of the return of Rehar Akatwi or Pamasu in a letter written on June 26, 2007, pardon me. He says, the transformation at the return of Rehar Akatwi, the becoming of the son Malachi 4:2. He says, but unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteous arise with healing in its wings, and ye shall go forth and grow as calves out of the stall. Right? He says, many wait for Jesus, Isa, Yahshua, Christ, Al-Messiah, Hamashiach, need to know out of Tamaray, Egypt, I call my son, Har, son of Asad. You see it in Revelations 12, who raised back to life Asar. It's all recorded in the movements of the heavens. So it says, Kepre is lined up also with the gateway. So again, the scarab beetle was the gateway, the stargate. He knew where the central sun or Sahu, the way home, only for those who have been transformed. So this transformation has to take place right now. It was to take place over the last 24 years, 24 years, 24 years. The father has been incarcerated, hidden. As Amun, the transformation was to take place, right? 24 years, 24,000. Each year, land per mile, per 1,000 miles. So the circle of your cycle took place. The transformational powers was to take place in his incarceration. This is why he kept telling Nubians, Nuwaupians, Sabaeans to stop slandering, stop gossiping, stop hating one another, stop separating, stop dividing amongst each other. Stop doing these things because it will hinder your transformation. And you won't be able to get it out of your genes once the clock strikes after 24, then your genes would have regressed. It's very difficult for anyone to transform after 2026. Once you hit 2027, you're in the route of returning home. The transformation was to happen in 2000, since 2000. The Father gave you 24 years to do so, to gather this actual facts and be able to come together in mind in order to transform the world. Because of the chaotic state that our people are in, you were to go out and heal and assist in raising the minds of the people with the actual facts, to eliminate the religious doctrines, to teach them who these gods were that had been given to us as foreign deities from other races and other religions and other star systems, not the star systems of your own. I don't know who has failed. I can't speak on that. The only thing I can speak on is doing the job which we're doing. I have no personal opinion about anyone's life because I stayed out of people's lives. This was something that we were supposed to do. Mind your mind for the jewels of your soul. So people who've spent days and nights arguing and trying to discredit and speak negative about other people and look for fault. He said, the Father said, when you look for fault, you open your mind up to negativity because you're waiting for a fault. You're waiting for something negative. So negativity will enter your mind. When you go on and you speak negative about other people and negative about situations that you don't have knowledge of, what you're doing is you're exercising the six ether negative forces that are responsible for keeping you in bondage, because you're implementing abuse and hurt that they tell you that will happen in the religious world. So you can't remove yourself from that if you're practicing it. And this is why it's important in this day and time, right, with this transformational power, that you continue to try and do cleanse yourself inside out. Continue to study. If you need the chance and you need to learn how to pray, it's not a problem with learning to speak to your ancestors. You called your mom. You call your mother when you need her. You call your grandmother to tell her you love her and you care about her. And if she needs anything, let you know? Well, your ancestors who are on the other side, they need you. They need you to tell them, I've stopped worshiping other people's ancestors. I stopped worshiping other people's gods. I stopped worshiping the Arabs' Allah. I stopped worshiping their prophets. I stopped worshiping the Greeks' Jesus. I stopped worshiping the bloodthirsty beings that of the Yahwehans, of the Hebrews and the Jews. I acknowledge you, great grandmother. I'm sorry for disconnecting my phone line to you by looking in a church and looking up at a drawing of a man on a methamphetamine victim on two sticks and calling him a savior, call it crucifixion, with blood coming out of his eyes and coming out of his ribs and coming out of his hands. And you're looking up at this being asking him to help you when he couldn't help himself. You have to apologize to your ancestors for that every day and feed them and let them know that your new life experiences, your new mind will hopefully help them resurrect and realize that our supreme deity has incarnated and you've accepted right knowledge of Wu Sabat and you're willing to be great and unlock the DNA that allows you to use your 100% of your brain. Your ancestors are waiting for that. You acknowledge your father, right? Your auntie. You will acknowledge your children. When your children call on you and they cry and you run right to them. What do you need? Well, how can I help you? Well, your ancestors are waiting on the other side to do the same thing. But you're calling on Allah. You're calling on Jehovah. You're calling on Yahweh. You're calling on Elo. You're calling on this being. You're calling on that being. You're calling on, you want to go eat crackers and communion and take your shahada and bow and bang your head on the floor and burn your forehead. And you're doing all these things that other races and other cultures are doing that are not of your own. And so you're forsaking the power that needed to link you to the transformation ability, to link you to your ancestors so you can transform and feed them as we spoke about in this Reha Aketsui's program. Any questions? I think we touched on quite a bit, a powerful awareness. I'm not just having from I'm living. Exactly. Thank you, divine alignment. You are living for your ancestors. They just like your mother. If your mother watches you, she wants the best for you. Just because she sheds her body, just because she takes off the clothes, or your great grandmother took off her jacket and took off her the filth that she's been wearing for 70, 80, 90 years. She took it off and said, okay, I'm done with it. Doesn't mean she doesn't still want the best for you. Doesn't mean your grandfather still doesn't want you to live and have a great life. Your great grandparents, your great 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 grandparents, your great 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 from both sides. It doesn't mean all of these generations don't want the best for you. Just because your body, hopefully at time it will be transformed into a beautiful, you'll be rejuvenated, you'll be resurrected, and your body won't age. You'll be able to take your DNA because you've cleansed yourself to other worlds and live and exist in the world of Panataru, right? But for those that body gets dirty and it gets old, you used it up and you decide, hey, it's time to change the tires. I don't want these tires. Let me take them off. And doesn't mean that the conscious and the mind and the soul is not the same. So this is what you have to understand about your ancestors. Just because you don't see them doesn't mean they're not there. You see the effects of microwaves. You don't question its existence. It cooks your food, but you don't see them. You don't see the effects of you don't see radio waves, but you know the effects of it when you turn on your radio station. You don't see cell phone waves, but you know the effects of the cell phone, internet, satellite waves, gamma rays. You don't question that, but you use and you know the effects of the energy that's being transmitted from one instrument to the next. So in that, you have to understand that energy of them connecting to you, you are the instrument by which they will give you the energy in order to manifest the things you need to manifest in your life. All it takes is the visualization and the thought to manifest and attract the molecules in the material world to manifest the thought into actual physical things. And that's what's happening. Okay, so I hope you all have shared and subbed and liked. Let me take some questions. Any questions? I think we touched on quite a bit. I didn't get into the biblical text. I think people have outgrown our doctrine. We have outgrown this biblical religious doctrine. I feel the minds of our people have outgrown it. I had lectures on the book of Revelations and speaking about the book of Matthew, the book of Mark, the book of John. It's like, unless they bring us the originals, we're not really too interested in whether or not they're real or not, or whether or not we're going to have believe in them. If you bring us original, I just carefully or this like respectfully, all the religious world needs to give us the original books, and then we can compare to see if what we have as a translation is real. But until then, we'll decline to accept belief systems any longer. This year is the year where our people worldwide, Africans worldwide, blacks worldwide are saying we're tired of being abused and suppressed. Other races, you've done it. You've done it 6,000 years. You know, it done a lot of damage. We're not going to focus on the damage is done. We're going to focus on how to rebuild and develop our spiritual powers to maintain our future and to, yes, ask your question, please. Please type your question. Okay, you don't have a question. I love you all too. Appreciate you, Born. Okay, so again, let me reiterate. I hope you all enjoyed the lecture. It was we say short, 2 hours is a short time compared to some of our lectures. But let me make it clear what we're going to few announcements. The Actual Facts channel. This is the podcast. On our channel, the video side, we have some documentaries. I would like you all, if you want to support the documentary, you can even support here. Some people can contribute whatever they would like to contribute. You know, I don't solicit donations. I don't ask for tithes. That's not what we do. We work for what's ours. But if you all want to contribute to what we have, what we're doing, we are going to we're going to the Father's birthplace. We're going to do a documentary. It's going to be really nice, so you all can be familiar with. Okay, I see your question. So you all can keep it there, Menkare. We all can be familiar with the history of our story of the Father, his birthplace, our York Association, the family of the York clan. We're going to talk about his travels. We're going to go to Sudan. We're going to go to Takoradi. We're going to go to the hospital that he was born in. We're going to interview various people. We're going to go to the port where David York brought him over to Boston through illegally. A lot of illegal immigration was taking place. Even illegal immigrants was going through Liberia to come to the States. So that's well known. The father was born in Africa, right here, and it was brought to the West. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to also trace the bloodline of Panatharu, the seeds. We're going to walk through these actual facts on the continent and give you real life, actual fact content. Meaning that, thank you. I appreciate that. Second, thank you so much. Let everyone know if they would like to contribute to the documentary. You can do so right now. It'd be really great. You might forget later. So I'm saying if you want to, you can. It's going to be a great production. You'll see it launched in a few weeks. Also, our next lecture is Original Creation. Original Creation is going to cover our story of creation. We've covered the religious text. We're moving out of that. We're going to go into Wu Sabat in a way that the world has never seen. We're going to show how and teach how our Father has taught us. Stop watching Billy Carson. Who you talking to, Ray? Who's watching Billy Carson? Yeah, he's learning from us. They're using our books. They're trying to figure out which direction we're going. I'm throwing people off right now because I know they need new content, right? So they watch our content to try to get ahead and then go try to draft up some content for their channel and speak on certain things, but they don't have the actual facts. They don't have our Father, right? So, okay, that's great. Yeah, we're done with the religious doctrine, okay? We're moving into actual facts. Okay, so no. Listen, I don't have a problem. Give me ideas. Don't just I know you. I appreciate you. Trust me, I appreciate the support. But also, if you would like to hear on specific subjects, help me out. Come to the comments, email, ask this question because there's so much. Look, there's a these are this is a list of updates. This is not even in the actual facts. These are updates that the Father has given us over the last 24 years that I've yet to cover. So we're going to do a lecture on these updates. We're going to have updates October 20th, 2012, September 10th, 2013, July 30th, July 3rd, 2011, September 2nd, 2012. These are while he was incarcerated. These updates are literally actual facts themselves that speaks about now. So I have a lot to cover. So I just want you all to participate. Email me. You want to learn about coming home to Ghana, citizenship, land. We're going to do a whole thing. We're going to go see some land in Takoradi. The Father wants us to get land. So I'll do my best. I'm doing my best to do what as the Father's asked on the continent. I'm here for you all. Eventually, you all will have to come here. But how you eventually, when you say, okay, I want to come to Ghana, who do I know there? How do I get there? You can get these updates. So, okay, so these are updates from, let's say, what is this? September 5th, 2013. August 1st, 2007. October 13th, 2012. September 7th, 2010. September 29th, 2012. Oh, wow. I didn't even know this was here. I'm glad I looked through here. Being from another galaxy. This is interesting. Old article. This is what we do here. We keep the actual facts. This is an old article. I hope you can see this. Right? Being from another galaxy. This is an article from October 23rd, 2009. So you know I keep my records. See this? Can y'all see that? An old article there about the 99 Nathard. Great. Minkare for sure. Oh, you asked a question, I think, too. Sekmet asked a question. Let me see if it's still there. Isis is Panatharo yet. She is the daughter of Enlil. Do you see? Oh, no, I don't know. Is that a question? Okay, so don't get crazy in the chat, y'all. I don't know what's going on there. A target for years. This is an older article, but let's get to these. Tautak elder, that's one of my great elders in there. Show support the elders of all the elders that's been around. I mean, again, there's a 24 elders patrak that speaks about how our elders are the closest to Panatharu. So we have to maintain respect and love for our elders. Anytime you see an elder who's been walking with the Father for 30, 40, 50 years, you have to literally bow and show your respect to them, because without them and their sacrifice, we wouldn't be able to do the things that we do. A lot of the discipline that I've learned from my ancestors comes from them, comes from the elders, passed down, right? And so they've done a tremendous job, even in maintaining and supporting Africa. You have to support this is our doctrine. If you want to do anything of importance right now, is to support Africa. If you work in a job, for them, work to support Africa. Oh, I appreciate that. Wow, this showing love. Y'all showing love in the chat. It's definitely love. So, yeah, you see the example of what the family is doing. All of this is going to the documentary. We have to take a filming crew down there. Obviously, we're going to have some beautiful drone shots. We're going to show the landscape. We're going to show the port. We're going to show the culture. We're going to show where our Father comes. So you see where the Father comes from. And it's important that you make sure that people join the channel. It's not exclusive. It's not a Duswa York channel. I'm just presenting what the Father has given us, because I've taken upon myself to be an example of what a son and a student should be in this day and time, not just by talk, but by example of action. And so these actions are needed to build. We're building from the ground up. So it's important. We still have the Malachi York Foundation. Oh, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do something for the children. We're going to show you the children of the Malachi York Foundation. A lot of you have never seen the works that's been done because I haven't put it up, but I will make sure that you all will witness it now. So I'm going out my way to move. The podcast will still be done the 9th, 19th, and the 27th. But in between time, we're going to be in different parts of Africa, all over the continent. Like I said, we have a 7-country tour where we're going to be doing things all in reference to actual facts. When you read about the supreme beings, right? We're going to go to the swamp area in Botswana. When you read about Mali and the Dogon and them talking about Sirius A and Sirius B, we're going to go to the Dogon tribe and speak to them and introduce them to the actual facts. And in each place, you all will help open a bookstore at these countries, not just me. I don't expect me to do everything by myself. If you want to, I don't know you don't expect, let me say that. I know you're not expecting that. I'm just saying you can participate. It's not just after this broadcast, right? Or after this lecture, then you go on about your life. No, we have a job to do. So I'm on the ground and making sure. Oh, not only that, the freedom fight is, we didn't even touch that. We still got to vote. That's coming up. The vote to donate to the Children's Fund in Ghana. Well, you just did. I appreciate that. Who is that? That's a love. I appreciate that. Just this way here, you can actually, I don't know what goes on the other end, but I think you can join outside of the chat or help assist outside of the chat, right? If not, just email me and I'll show you how to. But we have the Malachi York Foundation in Ghana that's still operating. We still feed our children once a month. We do our best. I don't advertise it a lot because it's so much going on that I just try to just make sure it's done. But I would like you all to participate so we can grow. So when y'all look on the continent and you'll see, wow, I have some place to come. The Father's coming home. We're building Nuwaupian. We're building we know where we're going. We have bookstores in these particular countries. We have a bookstore in Mali. We have a bookstore in Botswana. I have to go to South Africa. There's family in South Africa right now that is waiting for us to visit. So we have to go to South Africa. There, we will open up a bookstore. If you want to help gather as many actual facts as you can, if you just got extra books that you want to donate, you can donate. It could be books. It could be time. It can be spreading or sharing the channel. There's many ways to do so. So, yeah, that's a part of it. So we're going to go to South Africa. We're going to Sudan. We have Sabaeans, right? Love you all too. We have Sabaeans that are all over, Nuwaupians, Nubians. The African continent is waking up. I get emails. Oh, we're going to Kenya. Kenya is where Yanun descended down. A lot of people not understanding that, may not be aware that the Father descended down on the great mountain in Kenya. So we're going to go to Kenya. We're going to meet some of the high priests and the seers there, and we're going to make sure that a bookstore is there. We're going to go to Uganda. Uganda has some of the oldest fossils that's spoken of in the actual facts. So we're going to go to some of those museums to see those. We're definitely going to go to Ethiopia. We're going to check out the churches that were built by, I think, the son of Solomon through Queen of Sheba, right? Makeda, as she's known as, our mother of the tribe. So we have that we have to go there to travel. We're actually going to Liberia. The Bassa tribe is there. The Bassa tribe is the Bawassa Africa, right? He was known as, he used the Bassa name from the Bassa tribe. So I'm also a Bassa, Duswa Bassa York. There's a Bassa tribe in Ghana that traveled to Liberia as well. So we have a lot to cover. And now that the continent is opening up, everything in the actual facts channel, I'll be giving to you all. And I'll be lining it up directly with the Father's publications and all of the books that we have available we're going to cover it. And so it's just important that you all support. I'll do my part. As long as you do your part, we'll be successful. And as a whole, we'll make sure the father has something to come home to. Right now, with his freedom, right, we can say, yeah, Baba, we want you home. You coming home, but what do we have to give? What do we have available? What do we have built? We don't have anything built. So I want to make sure that we have something built. Whether the land, we have to make sure we get land. He's been telling us to get land in Takoradi, get land in Takoradi. Matter of fact, there's an update that I was just reading where he says Panatharu said that in Takoradi will be Nuwaupian. So I'm actually going there tomorrow to make sure that we do what we're supposed to do so we can manifest all of these things for you all. And I know, I see it's coming down. We all see Babylon. We all see what's taking place. We all see you all are being chosen, right? You all are being chosen to tune in. You've been chosen by your ancestors to be a part of the great family. And when it all falls, you'll know exactly what to do. So it is very, very important to make sure you tune in. And we're going to have updates for the legal updates. You still have to vote. Don't forget, we have to vote because the legal is still working. I don't want to mix the legal as well in this as well, but we'll have a special lecture for that. It seems like we'll have to do them one a week. You have to email me. Everyone, if you want to know about Ghana and you want to assist, there's a group of elders that are over the project of Ghana, and we'll connect you with them, right? And I know you've heard about Ghana. You see Ghana. This is one of the only countries that's offering citizenship to Ghana, right? To Africans in the diaspora. You have to do that before Trump messes up your passports with African continent, because right now what he's doing is, because he's cutting off African countries are cutting off the the American passports. So as a nation, we have to do things on our own. And that's why it's important for us to come together as a nation, so we don't have to be trying to keep being accepted by everybody. Please accept us. We're like, listen, we're a nation. These are my people. I'm already in contact with the government of Ghana in reference to you all as our people as a nation. And they are aware that there is a nation of people. It just takes more diplomatic talks and more things that's being done on the freedom fight and the legal aspect, that we're being prepared for March. That's well known. The father knows about this. This is not something that's being done unilaterally. This is done. Everything I'm speaking about goes through this being. That's just how it does. That's just how I do it. I don't play games with people's souls. I'm not playing games with your lives. I don't play games with people's hard-earned money. I don't play games with people's energy. I don't play games with people's minds. I wouldn't be in a position to be doing any of that. I wouldn't be blessed to be doing this if I was playing games with people's minds. You see people falling off like this because they playing games. Panatharu, our ancestors have said, you playing games, you getting out the way. You misguiding the people, you're getting out the way. You're getting shut down. Channels are being shut down. People are having accidents. People are going through all types of situations where they can't even. I'm not making fun of any situation. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is, if you're playing with the children of Panatharu, your ancestors, our ancestors, they're getting people out the way. And if you're doing what you're supposed to do, you will be okay. So I'm not risking or playing any games with anyone's life. My own, my children, my family, my elders, my father, I don't do it. If you see me slipping, you better say something. So that's why I make sure I maintain consistency. I make sure I maintain the actual facts, giving it to you because this is what the Father asked. I maintain working on the freedom fight and getting the affirmation to the world, because people want to know what's really going on, and the minds of our people have to wake up. So this is how you can support. Focus on the continent. If you want to come to Ghana, you want to move to the continent, let's do it collectively. Let's make sure the Father's first. The freedom fight is there. All of you all still have to vote. All of Black America, they don't play at all. That's serious. So it's a lot to do. We got a lot to cover. This is going to be a great year for us. Are you going to incorporate live questions and answer in the future? Sure. We could do that now. Maybe we'll have a lecture. I'll just do live questions and answer. Which language book should I start with? Email me, Ricky. Ricky Ricardo. I like that. Email me, right? And I'll help you with the in just email any book that you want. I'll guide you to where to get the books. If it's a bookstore close to you, you can get a I'll get you to the bookstore. If there's uh books that you need or questions, I'll answer them through the email. I just need you all to share, make sure that people join, subscribe, because that's how the channel grows. That's how you help save souls, and it will grow us in the direction that we need to grow, so we could be a strong, powerful nation. As the devil's world is falling, we are rising. So I appreciate everyone tuning in. Any other questions last minute? I hate leaving, but I gotta go. Sometimes I just love talking to y'all, but I don't want to seem like I'm just babbling. Time to free the master teacher, Dr. Malachi. Exactly. One, only one vote. That's right. That's powerful. I like that. You're gonna be a part of the campaign. Who's that? Last storyteller. Time to free the father. The only one. That's right. Your vote. I'm telling you, we get 1,000,000 votes, but the father's coming home. Let's go for 1,000,000 votes. Count your votes in. Right? We almost we there. We all we have to do is just make sure everyone can campaign. Now, what I'm going to do, become a part of the email, right? Email me just to say I'm in. So when we get our newsletters come out, I'll be you on the email list. You get the newsletters. When the um, voting campaign vote is now or never. That's the campaign slogan. One of the campaign slogans is Enlil your uncle, your spiritual uncle. Who's that? Oh, okay. I see the question, Savant. Technically, I know it wouldn't be my spiritual uncle, no. Maybe my great uncle, but not in that sense. I don't think I'm related in that way. You ask, I don't know if you're even asking me, so you may be asking someone else. But let me say this. When do we vote? Email me. We're going to vote in June 26th. We're going to do a 19-day vote where you're going to vote online. You're going to have 3 ways to vote. Okay, how and where? I'm going to explain that. Thanks. You're going to be able to vote 3 ways. Online through our website. Mail, you can mail in your vote to a particular bookstore, and you can come in and put in a ballot. So you have it 3 ways. We'll do it 19 days so we don't miss anyone. Once the vote, we already voted before. You may not know, we voted in 1992. That vote is still legitimate, that he's still our president, and this is that we still, our nation is still thriving, and we're still moving forward. That's the mentality. We just scattered because of the violations of international law that nations have performed against us by violating our territorial integrity. So we're going to address that in a legal way. That's a whole legal conversation. If you want more information on that, I think episode 7, A Nation of Our Own, Nation Identified, speaks about that. We went through a whole lecture about that. Sometimes I don't even remember what those lectures. I do remember, but it's a lot of information. So go back and check that out. So mine is set on one thing and then it switched to the other. But uh they put no, yeah. Well, this is different because this is June 26, 1945 that they playing with. It's not the same. But we're gonna handle it differently. Trust me. We have the method. Question: if we have 24,000 years to perfect our being, when it comes to our parents, older relatives passing from this world, how do we connect with them if they possibly reincarnate back on Earth? Well, there's an etheric link, right? But email me and I can get you the book that covers that. It's the spiritual you after the physical you dies. Also, uh it's in the 9. It speaks about the spiritual link, and Psalms of Yanun also. But email me, brother, and you'll get it. Check out the email, the United Nubian Nation at Gmail. And I'll get you all of that information. I expect you to email me so we can be consistent and make sure that you get the information you need. If you need the chants, email, you need prayers, you get those automatically, because that's something that you all have to do. 9, 3, and 9. You have to cleanse your spiritual body. Oh, okay. I thought I explained the vote, but I'll explain it again. Okay, yeah, sure. Let me do that. I forgot I can use the chat. Okay. Let me see. Hold on 1 second. This is it. Hey, you could have put it in for me, right? But thank you though. Okay. Is that correct? United? Yeah. Check. You see it? Oh, okay. You are speaking to me. You see it? The United Nubian Nation at Gmail. So take that real fast. Make sure you copy it and then email me. You and if you want any of the books we spoke about. Oh, the question and answer. So I'll put a new schedule up in the community chats where um you we'll have a schedule of what lectures we're gonna have. We're gonna have the original creation, and then we'll do a live question and answer over the last episodes that we've done. We're also going to address, we're going to do artificial intelligence versus outer intelligence. We're going to address that because a lot of people are talking about this AI and they want to know how is it going to affect human beings? What is it going to do with how is it going to affect the intelligence of human beings, and is it going to take over human beings, is it going to destroy human beings? And so the father addresses a lot of that in Dr. York versus the computer. So we're going to address what AI is. We're going to address how it has no effect on the reasoning, the etheric link that you have to the divine, and the difference, and why it can never let's say compared to the intelligence of Panatharu, which are creators of natural nature. So we'll address that as well. Yes, yes. Murdoch, Dr. York is the son of Inky, which would make him the nephew of Enlil, right? I get what you're saying. So I understand exactly your question. But I don't know the spiritual link. That's what I'm saying. It may not be a spiritual. I don't know. I would have to ask my father about that. Is there a relation spiritually? But this is a good question. But I couldn't answer that. But thanks for that. I'll keep that in mind. We are finally living for and of and by each other. For real, seriously, like it feels good, even in this conversation, like speaking to you all, right? I can't wait to get to speaking to you all. It's listen. Oh, okay. So we'll do. Okay, this is we'll do a entire lecture on these up, and it's more. These are the updates. I mean, this is what the father was speaking about, not what he wrote. This is what he was speaking about from jail, from prison, from his kidnap in a state underground. He gave us so much information. Let me just read one thing so you can see just one update, because I'm holding them and I know you're like, what's in them? He says, let's say here, let me see. I think this is the same one. Let's see. Okay, this is about the feminine. He says, this was in June 17, 14. He said, now, ladies, there's a concentrated effort for you not to live as a tribe. They already have people programmed not to get along with each other. And it is even greater effort for women not to get along. There's so many reality shows that show women in a very bad light. Bad Girls Club, Hip Hop Atlanta. When women live together, their cycles become in sync. So imagine how powerful you will become. Yet you have in ancient times women pegged as being bad for gathering together or being witches in extreme cases that cost many innocent women their lives. They were in tune with nature and had knowledge of natural healing and their hidden potentials as goddesses. Women have to come together because it is dead. It is time to reset the clock of destiny and reset our story as it is done every 24,000 years. The planet is called Project 24. Says, are we praying? You hear that? So that's just one. And this is July 8th, 2014. Yeah. Oh, he said, so a question. Now the question was asked before, does Adam have a navel? Grand Rising, real ops. Appreciate you. Does Adam have a navel? What about did Eve have ovaries? According to your Bible, she had to be taken from the rib of Adam. So more questions. How old was Adam when he was created? Well, he had to be past puberty because he had to be able to reproduce, and he had to have a certain age past that. He had to have a certain age past. That's because your brain produces certain serums and hormones at an age. That's a basic biological question. So he got this so much. He says, and on with the world of diseases, MERS disease is said to be airborne. There's another disease from the Caribbean said to be spread by mosquito. Yet he said some of the symptoms are joint and fever pain. Anyone who is still associated with the school of Islam will be classified as such. I told you that religion is for whom Muhammad was sent to, Arabs. You are Nagaru, Negroids. Did you know that when a person is arrested, they take pictures of all your tattoos you have? Oh man, this is so we're gonna have to do a lecture on this. All right. We just go through a lot of these updates for those, and you'll hear directly. These are notes from what the father spoke about. Have you ever read? Let's go back to some of these questions in the chat. Tablets. So I can pin. I should be able to pin that my email, right? I should have done that in the beginning. I'll do it next time. Oh, let me see if I can pin this. Oh, I can. All right. There you go. There you go, you all. So it's there. I'm late. So have you ever read ETCLS tablets, electronic text corp, Sumerian literature? Oh, I heard about those. Yeah, I heard about those. It said right. No, I have not. Oh, okay. So he's asking us for so yeah. So that's about all. So yeah, this is what I'll put the schedule of the lectures in the community, and make sure you take the email down, and also that's about it. The documentary is coming soon. We have a schedule for March and April, May. We're preparing these next 3 months for the campaign so we can vote in June. The Nubian nation is moving. The father will be free. You all will be free. Our nation will be free. Everything will be beautiful back as it was. The African continent will rise, and we will all be prepared for what's to come. We all just have to do that due diligence. Okay, everyone, listen to Baba speak an exclusive interview. Oh yes, oh yes, it was an interview. It's on the video side, an interview that I did with the father, and we're speaking about the legal updates that was being done at the time. So you hear him talking, you hear us going back and forth. That's how we do the legal. When I'm doing the legal, I just put my heart, mind, and soul into it, and you'll hear that conversation. It's good to hear his tone. You hear him speaking, and yeah. So that's about it. I'll conclude with that. Tawakum, love you all. Email and let's stay in touch. And look out for the next lecture on the 19th, which is original creation. So we'll get into Wu Sabat. We covered the religious doctrines. We did all of that. So yeah, that's a lot of. Thank you. Appreciate you. Take care. Travel safe. Stay warm. And make sure you share. Just share it. Don't matter. Share it everywhere so we can grow. Make sure people subscribe and we get it moving. All right. Wadu.